Firstly, brother, thank you for talking to me.
Of course.
I really appreciate it. Because I am struggling to actually find and talk to a lot of soldiers out here. But can you sort of explain who you are and what you were doing on that first day of the invasion?
Sure. My name is Staff Sergeant Yossi Blooming. I'm an American citizen, an Israeli citizen, actually a fifth-generation American, believe it or not. Patriotic to my country, love the freedom that it brings. I'm here in Israel because I have a certain allegiance towards defending that freedom that's at stake here in the Middle East, the very freedoms that America was founded on. And that's why I'm here, just to set off the baseline. That's why I'm here. I'm here to protect and defend. I'm married, have a wife here in Israel, an Israeli girl. I was with her at home on that, fateful Saturday afternoon, or it was morning, but we heard it was already afternoon, middle of a holiday. I was released from the Army after about 3 years of service on the Thursday before.
Yeah.
So it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday morning. We were just enjoying life together, thinking about the things we were going to do once I'm out of the Army, now that I'm out of the Army. We got the news, we looked at each other once in the eyes, and without even saying a word, we understood that this is something that's above us. Called my commander, I said, I'm coming back. He said, you got a gun, you got a vest, let's go.
And there was no problem coming back with your service? Easy to get in?
I'm a commander, so you can never have a shortage of commanders.
Yeah, absolutely. And how has the feeling changed since then till now? Because we have seen a significant shift in the media. I think day one, everyone was super pro-Israel, and now we are, in my opinion, we are seeing a shift. How's the opinion changed, even just in the civilians here, of the feeling of safety and protection?
Since the attack on the Holy Land? I think there's a certain clarity. It's almost a dreadful clarity. It's almost, for some, it's a scary clarity, but it's a clarity. And it's that all of the different, uncertainties have been cleared up with regards to what exactly their plans are across the border, north, east, south, I'd say west, but that's the sea. What their plans are, what they have in mind for us, what they have in store for us, what they would like to do to us as a country, to us as a people, has been made very, very clear. And even if the media will shift, it might move on, it might forget, it might no longer support, it doesn't really interest the guys here who have their lives at stake every day. That if you can't play with your children on the front lawn on a Saturday afternoon, not worry about guys with AK-47s coming in and mutilating, corpses of your family, that's something that has to be changed. And so no matter how long it'll take, we've got plenty of time, we've got no pressure. It'll be a couple weeks, couple months, could be years. Whatever the price will be, we will restore stability and security, and we're locked on that. As a military, as a people, we're locked on that. It's not going anywhere. That clarity is not going anywhere.
And as a commander in the Army, how important is it to make the distinction between who is Hamas and the civilians in Gaza? Because we have seen some terrible bombings, and as such a civil person as yourself, you can really feel, I guess, for the civilians there. How important is it for people to say that there's a difference between who is civilian just living in Gaza and who is Hamas?
100%. I think it's important to understand the technical and statistical side of the 58% number that's thrown out a lot of Gazan civilians who voted Hamas into power. There's also the other side that they didn't have much of a choice, or they do have a choice, or they don't. At the end of the day, it comes down to one thing. When you have a woman, a child, a man who's just living their life and trying to, just do what they can to give themselves the best life, best opportunities for their family as possible, that's a humane level that we all have to start out on. Every single one of my soldiers, I make sure that's ingrained in their minds. Before the tactical level, before the strategic level, is the humane level. We're coming in and we're destroying houses. We're coming in and we're clearing people out and disturbing their way of life. There's an inherent negativity to that. At the end of the day, it's necessary. At the end of the day, it's defensive. At the end of the day, it's Hamas who started this, of course. But to come in with that humane mindset balances things, and it always gives you that balance in your head. Before you pull the trigger, before you call in air support, before you come in and you decide you're going to do this or do that on the battlefield, understand the humane level. It's above all.
And what are the main tactic and strategic risks that soldiers are facing from Hamas?
Sorry, go again.
Once you roll onto the ground, what is, I guess, the primary risk? So say like when I was in Afghanistan, the primary risk is a complex ambush or IED. When you guys, if you roll into the ground in Gaza, what sort of things are you taking into account as, I guess, the most likely risk?
The biggest risks are also the very, very same things that we look to be the most careful for, and that is civilian populations. Whenever you see a hospital and a church and an ambulance, we've seen this firsthand in other wars that Israel has gone through, Hamas takes advantage of that. They have no bounds, they have no rules, they have no red lines. That's the biggest threat. It's that you don't know what's black and what's white. It's that you don't know what's concealed as a weapon, what's concealed as a combatant. We have to be very careful, but we can't trust the enemy. We have to be very careful and very sharp, not take anything for granted. And unfortunately, that's the situation Hamas has put us in.
And what about militarily on the ground? What sort of things are really facing the soldiers?
Yeah, I think when we look about the overall mapping of how Hamas is structured, without going obviously into too much intelligence detail, they're backed by Iran. They're backed by Iran. They're backed by other proxies in the area who all have the same interest: destruction of Israel. So they'll put aside tribal loyalties and they'll put aside different hatreds that they've built up over the years for the sake of that common goal. And we've seen that with the different weaponry that they've brought. The weaponry that they have of, bombing drones, as they call it here, which is we've seen in Ukraine as well in that war. We've seen a lot of different use of tactical bombs, like they call them here, which is that you have an initial blast, but it's only there to bring forces into the site, and then you have a secondary blast. Also an old tactic of many terrorists in the Middle East for years. Those are the kind of things we have to look out for. That just like we've technologically advanced and we develop, so is the enemy, and they're always looking for new ways to kill and maim. New ways to be as effective as possible on their dastardly missions. We have to keep an open mindset, never take things for granted, never feel too confident in ourselves. Like I said, be sharp, always scan the area, always keep yourself frosty, like I say. My men know that. We're ready for anything.
Yeah, great. And as your training picked up, specifically for what we're seeing, because in my mind as a former soldier, the real risk here is going down into those tunnels, foot wide, couple hundred meters deep, hundreds of kilometers long. Is there specific training around how to combat and deal with this?
Sure. Obviously, the tactical disadvantage of a tunnel is that all the IDF's force and all of our support and all our different angles of approach are all compromised and essentially eliminated when you've got one single angle of approach and a small tunnel. The IDF is trained specifically for years since we first discovered tunnels decades ago. We're ready for it. We have our ways to deal with it. Plenty of training that's gone on to focus specifically on those tunnels, what you do when you approach a tunnel. Everything from seeing a tunnel in that very first, where you first realize there's terrorists inside that thing, all the way till the end when it's finally blown up. All those different stages are discussed, synchronized throughout the IDF and the different bodies, from the air to the ground to the sea. And we see it as a very, very dominant threat. We believe, much of Gaza is underground, unfortunately, maybe some of the hostages, etc. And we've seen that from some of the testimonies of these hostages, that they're using them, they're fully active. The IDF is ready to deal with that, and it's a complex threat, but it's, like they say in Hebrew, katan aleinu. It's small on us. It's no big deal.
And how is the feeling amongst your men? You mentioned you're a commander. How's the feeling amongst your guys? Are they keen to go in? They're keen to start the mission?
I'll just put it like this. The role of a soldier in the IDF is to defend against imminent threats. That's it. It's not about solving political issues. It's not about being some kind of body to police things in the civilian population. We're just here to train, and I've been in the army for 3 years. I got out, now I'm back in, like I said earlier, to train for war, to train to defend and protect against imminent threats. And that's exactly what we have on our hands right now. If there's anything we're ready for, it's this. There's nothing else. Not policing, not stopping riots, not coming into difficult situations. The police are there for that. The politicians are there for that. When it comes to coming in and taking out direct threats to the Jewish state, the Jewish people, that's what we have on our hands. That's what we've trained for. So if anybody's ready for it, it's us. Yeah. And if we're ready for anything, it's this.
Yeah, and of course preparations for rescue and recovery of those hostages as well.
Absolutely. We have on the one hand a direct responsibility to prevent things of this nature from happening again. That's why we want to go in there and take out every single infrastructure and every last member and every last supporter of the terrorist organization of Hamas that presents a direct threat. And on the other hand, we have this incident that has already happened and is still unfolding. Every minute we have one of these 200 plus civilians, innocent civilians who are under enemy hand. That's an active, ongoing emergency situation. It's on our minds, it's on our hearts always. Most importantly, it's on our weapon sites, ready to go. It's in our planning, it's in our training, and we will definitely do our best with God's help to get out as many as we can.
And what do you think people don't understand about Hamas? What does the average person sitting, say, back in Australia that is, 15,000 kilometres removed from this, what do they not understand?
I'll put it in, it's almost a two-pronged thing that people just usually miss when it comes to Hamas. A, there's no gray territory, it's black and white. They don't have the idea of a Jewish state or a two-state solution or any kind of compromise. It's not in their ideology. Yeah, it's important to understand that. Don't take my word for it, read their charter, they make it very clear. And number two is, we're not their final goal. They're against the entire Western ideology, the idea of a free world, the idea of a free expression where you can have from your neighbor differences, and that's perfectly okay. You can have different faith, a different orientation or belief than your neighbor, that's perfectly fine. They don't have that in their vocabulary. They don't have that in their way of life. We see the proof of that day by day by day as we look at the way these people conduct themselves. That's important to understand. As a person who wants to live a free life, supporting Israel is not about supporting a different nation and different people. It's about supporting the free world worldwide. Yeah,
and I do say to people as well that the Islamic jihad of this as well, it does expand as well. So the same we fought in Afghanistan, same we fought in Iraq, and I don't think there's much difference here at all with these terrorist organisations either.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what is the threat that you guys are facing also in the north of the country?
So Hezbollah sees Hamas as a friend, as an ally, despite their differences, and they have many differences, be religious and political and otherwise. When another person comes in and attacks my enemy, whatever I don't do or don't have in common with them, I'm going to attack as well. That's what Hezbollah is doing, trying to take advantage of the situation. They should just not make the mistake. For their own sake, they should not make the mistake to think that the IDF is only focused on one front and all their resources are invested in the small strip of Gaza. We're ready. In fact, we're more ready for Lebanon, and it'll be no problem to take on a two-front engagement. The IDF is ready. It's already physically prepared for any engagement at the northern border. Again, the IDF will take care of any threat, any imminent danger to its people, no matter from how many directions, no matter from how many nations, no matter the time.
Yeah. And what do you think was the breakdown on the 7th of October? Because as an outsider looking in, I know that Israel has a fantastic intelligence service and fantastic defence forces. What do you think that the breakdown was there for, a few thousand militant terrorists to be able to one, put together this attack, because this attack takes months to put together, and then carry it out fairly successfully, like for what they're looking for as terrorism, get the public, the world's eyes on them. Worked very, very well. It worked successfully for them. How do you think that was managed to sort of slip through the IDF?
We've seen testimonials from captive ISIS, Freudian slip, Hamas operators who were saying that they planned for this thing for over a year. Expansive attack. I obviously applaud and appreciate the heroic efforts of my friends. I lost a soldier in that engagement on that day. God bless his soul, and who did a really heroic effort to hold back and keep this thing from being much worse than it already was. The questions like this will be asked after the war. Focus right now is on the mission at hand. It's to continue this from continuing to spiral downhill, keep it from getting any worse, to stop the bleed before we can go and ask why it started. And those questions will be asked. We have a lot of investigating to do, a lot of self-introspecting to do as a soldier, as a military, and as a general country. But again, the mission right now is to get those who are captive back, to get rid of the further threats, then we can ask the questions.
Yeah. Can there be any compromise, or is the only way to the complete elimination of Hamas?
Just quote Golda Meir, if Israel were to lay down its arms one day and say, Hamas, we no longer have a military, we no longer have any arms engagements, Israel will be wiped off the map in a single day. If Hamas laid down their weapons, they said we're no longer going to be operating as a military and with all these different rockets and threats and bombs, there would be peace in the Middle East tomorrow.
Yeah. Now, my viewership is primarily military, as well as Australian American. Is there any closing points you'd like to make?
That I appreciate the support. Not just as a single person, on behalf of my guys, my battalion, my brigade, the general, IDF, appreciate the military understanding that those who have been to war, those who have worn the uniform can understand that when you see a real, truly evil threat, and you see it and you look at it in the whites of its eyes, you can understand. It's something that only soldiers can understand. We're with you. I know you guys are with us in your hearts, in your minds. We salute you. We give you a little hoorah and a little bump on the shoulder, and we'll go in and get the job done in the name of us all.
Awesome. Thank you, mate. I wish you and your team all the best and looking after yourself.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.